Hey guys, welcome to today's video, and today is another special video because today is all about drums, and I have a special guest, like last time as well, Vik Kovacs from Telling Secrets, who is going to share with us his secret about programming drums, how we use programmed drums, and what Hertz Drums brought to the table for this upcoming amazing record. We're going to use a track of the week to demonstrate exactly what happened. I think that says it all. If it's on BBC, track of the week, it cannot be bad. So without further ado, let's do this. Okay. Without further ado. Hey Vik, great to see you again, my friend. It's almost a habit now. I miss those days or weeks when we don't talk, honestly. So we have to keep the ball
thanks
rolling.
for having me. So do I. It's good to be back, and I'm excited to talk about the drums. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, as we know, the drums are the major building block of all music, and especially rock metal. I mean, without drums, guitars, I mean, that's what I like about rock, to be honest, that it's three elements and the voice that really make the whole thing. It's drums, bass, guitars, and a good, powerful voice. I love the simplicity, yet how complex and complicated you can make it as well, if you need it to be. So let's talk about the history of these drums that we had for Bliss is Oblivion, which became track of the week. Quite an amazing surprise, and congratulations again. It's a huge achievement, I think. So tell me about the programming, how you started and everything else.
Yeah, so the whole idea for the drums and the whole idea for the song actually came from the verse part. The song starts off with kind of like a double pulse, like a bow, because I really wanted to have some kind of a verse where the kick and the bass drum really work together. And I've been programming drums for a long time. I can't play drums, but I listen to, a lot of music that is really drum centric. So I appreciate drums, and some of my best friends are drummers. So I really listen to the instrument and appreciate it, even though I can't play it. So I know what I want to hear, and I know what I want it to sound like. And, through experience over the years, I can, see what's possible or impossible to play. So the only real rule I have with programming drums is just make sure that it can exist in the real world.
That's such a good point. And it's such a common mistake that I see that, I receive patterns that are really simple yet just not humanly possible. And that there you can see that, okay, this was not done by a musician or a drummer or someone with experience.
Yeah, and that in the past there'd be instances where I'd program something that wasn't possible, but it wouldn't be because I was trying to be difficult. It's just because maybe the cymbal samples that I had at the time weren't what I wanted, so I tried to blend cymbals, and then you have 3 cymbal hits on the same beat and a kick, But yeah, so the song, the idea for the song was based around the first verse pattern. So I did the original drum programming when I, recorded the demo and wrote the song. And then I gave the drum part to Zack Baker from Rain City Drive, who is probably the best drummer that I can think of.
Wow,
He's
okay.
ridiculous. Every time I show somebody a drummer one of the parts that he's written or played on, they're always like, I don't want to swear, but
wow.
it's really difficult. And speaking with Zach as well, and Matt from the band, it's almost like he purposefully sort of overplays a little bit in sections, and that's his style. But it's really cool, and it's tasteful, and it's very unique. I've taken some things from what he does. So if there's as a rule of thumb, if there's any flams across the snare or the toms, that's probably Zach's part. But the main grooves, I think they stayed the same. And when we first started working together, it's funny. Because with earlier songs, the drum parts would be completely different. And then now with the songs that, you know, are more recent, the drum parts stay the same for the most part. It's just the drum fills that are far more creative than what I had been doing before. But yeah, make sure the drums are real. Try and find some sort of characteristic in the drum part that you're going for. And if the song requires the drums to carry it through energy wise, then make sure that they have enough power or drive or groove or something interesting about them, so that they can stand on their 2 feet, you know.
I see. Because I can't wrap my head around it, how did Zack react when you say, okay, do you want to program the drums for me? Like, I don't want you to play real drums, I don't want to record real drums, just do the programming, because program drums are better, cheaper, whatever.
I think it was his idea.
Okay.
I think either, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was due to a logistical thing. But also, because we have done real drums before, and it would still start with MIDI drums, you know.
Okay.
So that we can land on the idea. It's like a sketch.
Yeah, so demo it out and then record it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it got to a point where the target for that given project, I can't remember, maybe it was full moon, wake up, full moon, one of those. You know, the target for the project was just better suited to do MIDI drums or start with MIDI drums, and then we kind of just stayed there. Because like you said, the drums are the building block for the mix. They're the heart. So you have to record them with some sort of intent, I suppose.
100%.
Of, you know, the direction you're going in. And I think that we knew that there's a possibility that somebody else would be mixing this, or we didn't have all the songs together yet, so we didn't know the exact direction that we were going in. So we just said, okay, let's just do MIDI. It'll be more punishing. It'll be more up front, and there's more freedom to sculpt it in a different way if we choose.
I see. Because so the songs weren't all done at the same time, therefore it was not possible to set up, say, 1 or 2 days in a studio and record an album with the same sound, I guess. Yeah, I see. Yeah, getting good drums recorded is extremely difficult in the first place. Getting good drums recorded consistently is even more difficult. So I have nothing but respect to the drummers and engineers in the studios who can accomplish this. It's quite a feat to achieve that, I think. And yes, my philosophy is that a well-programmed drum kit is a million times better than a badly recorded one. And 90% of the recordings I receive are lacking in some aspect, you know. It's like the room is not good, the tuning is not good, the playing is not good, the drum kit is not good, there's resonances, vibrating, screws, whatever, or the microphones are not good, the processing is not good. So drums have so many ingredients, and if only one of these ingredients fails, I'm not saying it's game over, but you're going to have a really hard time working with it and achieving really, really good results. In this regard, unfortunately, I have to say, although I love recording drums and I love doing it, really, it's just so much easier to do it with MIDI. So sound-wise, did you have a vision from the beginning, or did you say, okay, let's just get the MIDI done, let's just get the patterns done, and then we can tweak it? What was your vision for the sound of your album?
Well, I always, as you know, liked
I do know, but we're doing an interview for the audience. You know. It's for you guys, it's not for us. I know all of this.
So I think the best mixes at the moment, to my ears, are the falling and reverse mixes. I think that Tyler Smith, who I believe to have a huge part in their work, is a genius, and I really like all the sounds that they land on. And they do have a little bit of an Avengers super team there, especially in the drum department with Luke Holland as well. So that's the sound that I wanted to take from. I think, you know, it's really tight. I think the toms sound great. They sound really fat, but they don't, like you said, the resonances don't build up to an uncomfortable level. The cymbals are crystal clear and they sort of crack at the perfect time. The snare drum is so weird. It sounds like it's, I don't know the official term, but it sounds like the snare is half down, half up somewhere in the middle, and it sounds huge. So it just sounds really good. And that's the sound that I'd always wanted to do, and I've asked for previously, and it never really came about. And then I happened to mention it to you, and I even remember almost not writing it down, thinking, well, I've tried so many times and it's not been possible, so why bother? And then I thought I'd mention it to you. And I can only imagine what your reaction was when you read the message after having found this thing.
Yeah, approaching some random, you know, home recording, home mixing guy. It's like, hey, I want to have the drum sound off, one of the best drum sounds in the world. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's do it. Yeah. No, but it's funny because I got into listening to them not long before you reached out to me, and I was also thinking, holy shit, this, I don't know how they did it. I mean, it's obviously not just recorded in a studio. There is definitely samples on top and a lot of processing. I wish Tyler did an interview or a reveal how they did that. Or maybe for him it's nothing special. He's like, it's like making a ham and cheese sandwich, you know, nothing special, nothing worth mentioning. I don't know. I searched the internet for a long time. So yeah, I was happy to take on this challenge because I was extremely blown away by the mixes of Popular Monster and the other songs.
I'm sure Tyler knows his secret. I'm sure he knows that it's a secret that everybody wants to know. You know.
I guess this is a good little segue to introduce also Hertz Drums to the audience, because it's also a very lucky coincidence that just a few weeks before you reached out to me, Hertz Drums reached out to me saying, hey, we are this random company in the middle of Poland and we're doing a drum software. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. You wanna try? It's like, I never say no to free stuff, you know, let's try it, why not? They didn't ask anything of me. So they sent it to me and they said, look, if you like it, do a video. They didn't ask for approval or, you know, a view of the video. They said, do a video of it, post it if you want. If you don't want, don't do it. And they sent me everything they have. And I was blown away by that thing, honestly. So I talked to them, I did an initial review. I realized that it's actually a very reputable studio in Poland that is visited by a lot of international big names, particularly to record drums. It has an extremely good drum room. And they started out with here the bass packs, which is the only ones I had at the time, the blue, red and white, and they were okay, they were good. Now they improved them, they upgraded them. And then I saw, literally I think a week before you messaged me, that they released this one here, Metal Unlimited and Fame and Fury. I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then I saw in the Fame and Fury pack the names of these presets. It's like literally almost all of them I know and love. Sempiternal, Bring Me the Horizon, oh my god, it's like that's just another thing that I love and respect so much. And then here we have Watch the World Burn, which then became our drum sound, didn't it?
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and I was blown away by how close it was to the original from the band and how mixable it was and how well it reacted to everything that I did. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the drum sound that we created?
Yeah, I think I remember listening, the first song we did was Closer, which isn't this song, but it's a different song. And I remember listening to the first mix for the first time, and then I listened to it straight away, but I had to show the song to one of my friends. And I was like, listen to this drum sound. Is it not? It's pretty good. It's, you know, it's pretty close. I was really happy with it. I think the drums sound great. I think it sounds really similar to what I was just describing a second ago, where the resonance in the toms don't build up, but it's really fat. the snare drum is in this middle sort of ground where it cracks, but it's not, you know, it's still deep and fat.
Yep.
We'll just have to listen to it, but it sounds great. And I'm really jealous that you have this.
I'm working on it, I think. After this video, I wouldn't be surprised if you received an email with a copy for yourself. Let's see. So, with that said, let's just listen to this preset. Due to technical reasons, I have to overdub the audio, unfortunately, because we're getting double recording. But I'll do my best to rectify that. So this is the original Watch the World Burn preset. As you pointed out in the previous video, I believe, change the pitch on some of the notes so it matches the pitch of the song, of course. And then, of course, I adjusted the rooms and the reverbs a little bit. And of course, in the end, I also gave them a separate fader and treated them on its own and blended it in a different way. So let's listen to the preset just freshly loaded from Hertz Drums, the Watch the World Burn preset. Let's So as you can hear, it has a super tight bass drum, super tight kick drum. The toms are quite smooth, good articulation. I mean, the articulation in this software is insane. There are so many samples, so many layers. It's I couldn't count it. And the snare drum is quite deep, but it's not quite the apple juice yet that we want. So I put it through some secret sauce and some fruit press. And we squeezed a little bit more out of it, so it ended up being something more like this. So a bit of a difference. Of course, a lot of layers of mastering and all of that, and the master bus after it makes it even a bit thicker. But there is a large difference here, especially in how the snare reacts. The snare was squashed quite a bit in parallel, and there's a lot of processing here that's going on that I'll show you in detail in the next segment of the video. So yeah, this is a before and after, and nothing mind-blowingly crazy, but a little bit of SSL on most of the channels, bit of EQ on all of them, and my secret sauce is always the parallel processing, and I use multiple layers of that, in this case 3, and I like to automate them in the mix to change the intensity and the feel of the drums. So that's the voodoo that I do here.
Yeah, I am surprised. I'm not surprised about anything except from the snare drum by itself. That's the only one that sounds just different to how I would have expected it to with other things around it.
Right. In the mixed version, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was also, because I mixed it, of course, in the context of the rest, and I do agree that especially the reverb, it's more like a gunshot every time, but it's almost a bit overbearing when you listen to it like this. But it was never a complaint when we worked on the songs, right?
Nope.
Yeah,
nope.
I agree.
You can't. Maybe I'll pick up on it if I listen to the song now. But
man, I just ruined it. I just ruined it for you, didn't I? Are we gonna remix it?
Version 17.
17. Hey, you know what, man? 17 is fine. I just did a mix for a guy, version 20. I wanted to kill myself. It's just not fun anymore, man. There's a limit to my patience.
Someone's taken my record.
Yes, your record has been broken. One thing that I wanted to ask you, that you also perform live, and we have these extremely produced, mixed, processed, and really just perfect drums with no mistakes because it's all MIDI. How do you take that from the studio to a live set, to a live gig?
There's different possibilities depending on the circumstances and the logistics. If you have loads of time and you have the equipment and you know that you're going to be playing in a a great room, then some people can, you know, load up the samples onto some triggers and put the triggers on the drums and try and get as close to the record as possible. That's nice. That can't always happen though. So we just go with a mic'd up drum kit, and the only thing that transfers from this to the live setting is the drum part itself. The drummer has to just learn the drum part. But the reason why this and the MIDI is useful is if I need to, I can just send the MIDI file or the audio file with the visual MIDI to the drummer, so it's easier to learn and see what's happening, and hopefully a bit faster. Funnily enough, I think it was about 2 months ago now, I met with Luke Holland, and I had the opportunity to ask him how he learns drum parts, because he was in the Word Alive and now drumming for Falling in Reverse for a few years. When he first started, I'm sure he had a lot of songs to learn in one go. So I wanted to know, what assets does he get sent, or what does he learn the drum part from? Does he have the luxury of getting the MIDI and the individual drum part, or is he just going off the master? Is he just listening to Spotify or Apple Music to try and figure it out, you know, like most people? And he told me he just listens to the record. For most of the time, there's no time to get the MIDI or the drum file sent or the score or whatever. So he just listens to the drum part. And I guess that's similar to another drummer called Sage, who filled in for Bring Me the Horizon last year. He was saying that he had, I think, 10 hours to learn a whole Bring Me the Horizon set to play at a festival, and then carry on the run.
No way.
It was something, you know, crazy. It was, I don't know if it was 10 hours, but I think it was something like that. And the first time they played together was on stage at the festival.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. Funny enough, that's also the Travis Barker story. Do you know that? That's how he got into Blink-182, because the original drummer, I think they either fell out or he got sick or something, and Travis was playing in the band before, and they said, look, dude, we need a drummer. We're playing in like 10 minutes. Can you fill in? And it was just straight up punk music, you know, and he rocked it good enough, and that's how it was born, apparently.
I think it's less common now for people just to listen to the record and try and figure out the part note for note, whereas older musicians would say that the way that they got into guitar or piano or whatever by learning songs from records, by listening to them.
How did you learn guitar?
Well, I started with Guitar Hero.
Okay. Such a millennial thing to say, man.
No, I had lessons, but when I was really doing the practice that I wanted to do myself, I would learn songs just by listening to the song.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's cool. Cool, Vik. I think we could, God knows we could go on for ages about drums, guitars and everything, but I think we summed up everything drum related quite well for this record. I'm going to do a second segment for this video, so stay tuned, guys. Don't run away. We're gonna dive deep into the drums right now. I'm gonna show you exactly what I did in the mix. And of course, you can listen to Oblivion from Telling Secrets, Vik, really, in the link below, and also on BBC, apparently.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Martin. It was good fun, and enjoy the video.
Yes, man. Thank you for being here. Talk to you next time. Ciao. Okay, guys, here we go. Let's have a look at the drums of Oblivion, which was BBC Song of the Week just recently. So I guess it's approved, it's radio ready because it was on the radio. It's just a little bit of bragging here. So let's have a look at what we did. Like I showed you earlier, this is what the original sound, the original preset was from Hertz Drums, which is already amazing. So it's super deep, it's very well tuned, the cymbals are crisp, the snare is huge and very deep as well, and the kick is exceptionally tight. I really love this super duper tight kit, but added to that tightness is also a lot of low end, a really good and punchy sub, which is what we need, especially if you want that bring me the horizon, falling in reverse kind of feeling. So the times where we have to compromise between low end in the bass guitar and the bass drum are kind of over, I would say. We have enough processing power and ways of mixing to be able to make both really, really big. So now let's have a listen to the kit as a whole as I mixed it. Okay, so as you can hear instantly, I made it a bit crisper, a bit tighter, a bit punchier, just a bit more energetic and a bit more upfront, I would say. The snare is quite different, as Vik pointed it out earlier. It sounds more like a gunshot every time, and that's mostly down to the parallel processing, which I will reveal in a moment to you. So before we do that, however, let's have a look without parallel processing at all on the kit. So I'm gonna turn all of these off. Okay, so as you can hear, the parallel processing really gives, every layer gives another layer of intensity to the kit. And to me, that's really my secret sauce. Like I said earlier, I like to have 2 or sometimes even 3 or 4 parallel processing chains on the drums, and I like to automate them to find first a good balance between them, and then move them around a little bit during the mix as well to change the intensity, maybe even the upfrontness or the attack of the instrument as a whole. So that's my way of mixing drums. It's not the only way to do it, and not even the only way how I do it, but for more complex songs like this one, this is how I like to do it. So first, let me show you what I've done here. This is the preset like we have it. As you can see, it looks the same. Nothing has significantly changed. I think I lowered the tuning a little bit on the snare, and the rest has stayed pretty much the same. I've routed all of the outputs onto their own channel, and then by going into the mix window down here and pressing plus down here, I created auxiliaries to which then I output all of my separate instruments. So I really mixed it like it's a real kit with a separate track for every part of the kit. So first up we have the kick. So I'm gonna take off the drum bus, I'm gonna mute the parallel chains. Here we go, and now we can have a listen to the kit with only the serial processing on the channels themselves. So as you can hear, it's a bit brighter, a bit punchier. I carved out quite a lot of space for all of the immense amount of instruments that came up in the mix later on. So number 1, kick. Kick, of course, all of the direct ones go in equal amounts to my 2 parallel chains, which are the all-in and the crush. I'll show you in a moment. The kick, interesting, I couldn't remember doing this, but I actually ended up lowering treble and lowering attack on this one. This is crazy, I couldn't remember that. I took out most of the low mids at exactly 200 Hertz actually, and wow, I even lowered a little bit of the subs. This is actually quite surprising for me. The gate is not engaged, it just automatically comes up when there's nothing, but it's not acting. So let's have a listen to the kick on its own without processing. Yeah, it's a bit rounder, fuller at the same time because of the reduced top end, so it's really just a bit more there. And the compression just adds a little bit more of the attack. Let's have a look at the snare on its own. So what we have done here is, I've done the opposite. I added a bit of top end, reduced lows. That's incredible, I never do this. reduced low mids, that's also incredible. I never would have thought I would do that. And then, interesting. And then I added a bit of the all-in, the 1176 all-in in serial as well. So let's have a listen without. That sounds very interesting. It's not quite how I remember it, to be honest, and this shows exactly what happens when you start mixing in the context of the song, because these are, I have to say, moves that I would never do in a mix if I just solo an instrument. Like, why would I take off lows? But for some reason, this is what apparently had to happen. And then let's add to this snare the parallel one, which is bus 13, I believe, yes. Okay, so this is why I did it, because here I'm adding the black box with a lot of pentode and a bit of triode. This will crank it a bit already, and then I'm just smashing it completely with the distressor, taking off all of the top end, boosting a lot of low end, and clipping it so we don't get just this unnecessary transient, so we can get a really thick punch. Let's have a listen to it on its own. Yeah, okay, that's juicy. I like that. So what I did here basically is I used the direct one for the articulation, the presence, and the attack. And I use more the parallel for the body and the low end and just that huge punchy sound that we get here. The clipping, guys, here, that's deliberate. That's a trick of mine, because what happens is after a lot of compression that you will never completely be able to choke the transient unless you go 0 millisecond attack. So what happens is with more and more compression, you get a huge spike in the transient, which will make your bus compressor and your master bus go crazy. So especially on the snare drum, I like to clip it, kind of shave it off, but in a good musical way, if you can even say that in the digital age, usually using the Brit N or the Brit 4K. So I don't have this spike, and I have more RMS, more loudness, but less peak volume, right? So I have less peak here, but more volume actually. Let's have a look at the toms, what happened here. Also the toms, of course, are going to both of the parallel chains here. And this is just my tom preset. Bit of 6K, very broad, bit of 7.5 with a shelf, bit less low end, again running through the SSL 4K, less low mids, you always have to do that, guys, and a little bit, interestingly, even less lows, and then just a bit of presence and a tiny bit of 2-to-1 compression, so not even that much. Let's have a listen. Without. Interesting, very dead, very dull. Okay, that's very interesting. So this 6K boost, or this 5.6, whatever, that's basically tuned to the guitars, okay? It's tuned to the pitch of the song. So if the guitars, the song pitch changes a little bit, I would most likely change the frequency of this, because it has quite a broad attack. Hi-hat, nothing to go crazy about, just, I can imagine, yeah, a bit less low mids, very interesting. This peak here in the subs is interesting to me, guys, and I see this in a lot of these kind of high-end instruments. This is just rumble, and I don't know why they would keep it in a sampler instrument, so usually I would just cut this off. Because when you have a lot of these, they add up, right? 0 plus 0 in audio equals plus 6. So every time you have one of these, you just end up getting more and more rumble in your mix, and you don't know why it sounds muddy. Cymbals. Yeah, I'm basically just adding a bit of brightness, reducing the harshness, which always exists around 5-6K, and this whistling sound that almost sounds like wind over the cymbals. I really don't like that when they have that. Sounds like walking in a forest. I like forests, but I don't like walking. Overhead, I do surprisingly little here, just a little bit of EQ. I don't like to over-process these, especially if they sound good already. Let's have a look. So just harshness removal, guys, and a bit of 2K, which is where the vocal sits, of course, in the mix. And again, of course, the muddy low mids that we never need. Then the room, let's have a look here. Okay. Just a bit of low mid, there's not much to go home about. So now let's have a listen to how I treated the drums all together, because of course that's a big part of the sound. So first we go through the SSL G. It just does a little bit of smoothing, I quite like it, and the snare just becomes really punchy, really in your face when you have it. G, bus compressor, what else? But I'm not even touching the needle, so it's really just for the very loud hits, and then a black box, which adds a bit of thickness. Let's have a look. So this is a very little amount of processing, I have to say, that I did in Serial. As you can see, overheads, rooms are completely unchanged, actually, unaltered. And especially the drum bus, what I don't like to do is I don't like to squash my drums on the bus. The reason for that being is that if I was to apply a lot of compression here now, it would start messing with the cymbals. And I like to keep my cymbals clean so that when they hit, they fade out beautiful, and there's not this cracky, weird, crashy sound, this squashed, white, noisy crash sound or cymbal sound, which I really don't think is good. And one way of doing that is by just not applying compression to the overheads, and succeeding that, of course, the drum bus as well. But then you ask, okay, how do we get some pump? Well, we do that in parallel, and that's where my parallel chains come in. In this one, of course, I went with the first one, the CLA Crush, which is a preset that I took from one of his webinars, a 4:1 ratio, and about 10 dB of gain reduction, and this one just set to the middle so that it goes into the middle. A bit more low end, and a bit less top end, just taking out a bit of the harshness. Let's listen to it just on its own. So this to me is just a kind of an intensity slider. So let's have a listen with and without. Yes, it becomes louder, but it also sounds like the drummer is hitting just a little bit harder on the kit. And that's exactly what I want. And I love how beautiful you can push this in and push this out of the mix without becoming overbearing, and really changing the feeling of the drums and the song therefore as well. Let's have a listen with just a bit of volume swells here. The beauty is because we have the cymbals in the drum bus nearly unaffected, the CLA Crush doesn't mess up either the cymbals. So the cymbals remain nice, clean hits, and we don't get this really bad crushed sound. Let's have a look at the all-in. We all know what that is. 1176, all-in setting. I love this one, the Monster from Slate. Not sponsored content, as always, guys. I just really happen to like this. I used this high frequency sensitivity a little bit, and I actually took out more top end and a little bit more lower mids, because with a lot of compression, problems come up, and I like to fix the problems before it actually. More lows, always, why not? And the low cut at 30, let's have a listen. And now let's put this into the mix as well. And with this one, you can crank the kit quite a bit. Let's have a listen. So these volume moves that I did here, this is exactly what also happens in the mix between a verse and the chorus, between the chorus and the breakdown. Of course, we push it even more, and so on and so forth. The ratio between the crush and the parallel might change. It might be more like this, it might be like this in another section. So it's really lovely to change the feeling of the drums and the song with only a couple of faders. And guys, that's it really, there's nothing else to it. I absolutely love how the Hertz Drums performed in this album, and I can't wait to mix the next one. Vik is already working on it, and I hope Hertz Drums will give him a copy of the software so he can create the drums himself, and then we can create something truly amazing, because these presets, guys, they are absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love the Fame and Fury pack for this kind of music, the Metal Unlimited if you want to start more from scratch, be a bit more raw. It's fantastic. And the reworked blue, red and white packs, they sound exquisite. Very, very good drums, guys. Very happy with it. So this is it for today's video, guys. If you want to learn more, visit my website. We can do masterclasses, one-on-one sessions. And of course, if you want any mixing, mastering done, just hit me up. I will see you in the next video. And until then, happy mixing. Bye-bye.